Practice nailed down. So
Okay, go ahead, Pjae. It's all yours.
All right, so let's just say thank you so much. Hello and welcome all of you to Thought Leader Thursday, which is our new name. So thanks for being here. And we're just going to start off with a treatment. Is there anyone who feels so called to do one? Okay, because if there is, we'll go with that. Bill? How do you like that? Anyone, Bill?
Well, you know that Bill is always ready to pray.
I do, that's why I called on you.
And usually what I do is I count to 5 so that somebody else wants to pray, they get a chance. But I win. So just go ahead and close your eyes, turn away from the stuff that's around you so that we can open to that divinity within, that infinite creative power and presence that shares itself through and as and in everything. That divine goodness is right here, right now. It is me, it is each of us. It is this time that we're spending together. This Thought Leader Thursday is an activity born in the mind of the infinite and shared through it as us. It is wisdom, it is insight, it is uplift, it is joy, it is the bright light shining, and I'm grateful for it. I'm grateful for this time. I'm grateful for the ability to connect across all of the miles. Grateful for the technology, and I'm grateful for the good that's already now unfolding. I know this time is blessed, so I let it be, and so it is.
It is.
So it is.
So it is. Thank you, Bill. Thank you. All right, so we're going to get started. I do want to encourage any questions that you have. John will be looking at the chat and looking at your hands to see, you know, when it's raised, and we will break in when it's appropriate and answer your questions or comments, whatever they may be. So please feel free to do so. So I'm just going to take a moment then to introduce our wonderful speaker for today, which is Reverend Dr. Bill Marchiony. And as I'm going, because this is my second time, fairly new, I'm going to let John just jump in and let me know when there's something that might be missing that I failed to do. But in the meantime, I'm going to, as long as he's not jumping in, I'm going to keep on moving. So anyway, Reverend Bill Marchiony is the co-founder of New Thought Philly. He is the vice president of ANTN. He is our ANTN tech guru, and I say that with all sincerity. He is our tech guru. He is on the executive board of the International New Thought Alliance, INTA. He is this year's co-chair for the ANTN virtual retreat, which is on April 22nd, and we'll talk a little bit more about that before this is over. He is the co-chair of the 107th INTA World Congress that is happening in July 18th through the 21st in Chicago. And he is the co-chair of the ANTN retreat in September 26th through the 30th at Unity Village, which I'm sure that we're all signed up for already, because you know it's going to be amazing. He hosts a weekly Practical Prayer podcast and is the author of Practical Prayer for Real Results. You can find that on Amazon, or you can find it on Bill's website. He is speaking at the Unity Worldwide Tech Conference in March as well. So I think he's uniquely qualified to talk to us about his topic today, which is what is new for New Thought. And so welcome, Bill. Thank you so much for being here today.
Thank you, Pjae. I am delighted to be here. What fun to hang out with this awesome group.
It is. I'm going to just let you move forward. You talked about, when we discussed some things before you came on, we talked about some new developments that are in the New Thought community, centers, churches, and organizations. So I don't know if you want me to just lead you into some things, or just let you go ahead and start talking, and I'll ask questions from there.
Well, I'll say some provocative things, and you can say, what?
Tell me more.
What? What do you mean by that? Yeah, what I'm all about is what's new in New Thought. And this has been going for a while for me. Like, I've been into the new language of New Thought. So when I was trained, somebody would have an issue and they would go see a practitioner to get a spiritual mind treatment and manifest a demonstration. And if you heard two people at one of our communities talking to each other, they'd go, oh, that's great. And if you had a newcomer listening in, they'd say, what the hell are you talking about? So what we really mean is that we're going to talk to a professional to get a prayer and get a result in our life. And so I love being part of ANTN and independent because there's a lot of flexibility and openness to be able to use that new language, to do a practical prayer, which is what I've, the term that I've coined. And it gives us the ability to talk to people who are involved in other spiritual practices, and you don't like need to get the secret decoder ring to figure out what's going on. So I wrote a book about it 10 years ago, which is Practical Prayer for Real Results. And there's a workshop about that. And we do those online periodically as part of our foundational class in New Thought teaching. And about a half a year ago, maybe a little more at this point, I started doing a podcast, the Practical Prayer podcast, because I got myself a co-host who had a background in traditional religion. And the first question that she asked is, so what's the difference between practical prayer and a regular prayer? And I said, I don't really know much about regular prayer. So we've spent the last half a year, once a week, talking about that on the podcast. Robert Brzezinski is in the session with us today at New Thought Media Network, and we're actually going to start recording the podcasts live on Facebook and YouTube. So on Monday afternoons at 1 Eastern, you can listen to Carol and me as we record the podcast, and then some number of days or weeks later, it shows up in the podcast, which you can get any place that podcasts are. But there's so much new that's going on in New Thought. And there's Carol now, the podcast co-host. Hey there, on TV with us again. I love ANTN because it's an opportunity to connect with peeps who are like on the same path and to share ideas and to support each other. And it has been an absolutely wonderful thing. And I love being involved in International New Thought Alliance, which is an equally wonderful thing. And one of the things that I've always had a passion for is getting the people who are involved in New Thought together so that we can hoist this bright light of the teaching up as high as we can so people who are looking for it can find it. And so a lot of that is happening this year. The ANTN annual gathering has been rebranded as a retreat, and we're going to specifically get together so we can connect with each other and have enough time and space and leeway that we can really dive into some stuff. It's called Convergence, and the theme is love, learn, decide, and do. And so it's going to be a total immersion. On the other hand, the INTA World Congress, which is happening this summer, is for the first time that I'm aware of bringing together the leaders of all of the New Thought organizations. So it's going to be Centers for Spiritual Living and Unity and Divine Science and United Foundation for Better Living. It's going to be ANTN and Agent and INTA. And we're all going to get together and talk about what we have in common and what the unique things that we're bringing to this are. Because Tim Stewart, who's the president of INTA now, relayed to me at the Congress in 2019. He says, when people know about one of the New Thought teachings, they think the other ones are different. But as soon as somebody understands two of them, they realize that we're all the same. And it's so much different than everything else. So that's what's new. Long way of starting up with that. But what's new is the opportunity to let the newness shine and let people see it.
That's wonderful. But one of the things that you, it's not like I said, but it's not a but. One of the things that you just said was, looking at some new language, and, as what's been an issue over the years as I've been in New Thought is trying to explain to someone the difference between New Thought and regular church, and the difference between a treatment and regular prayer. What words have you guys come up? And I'm not putting you on the spot, but have you guys come up with something that we could use, or what can we? Yeah. Share that.
Absolutely. Carol has spurred me into understanding this. And it's as easy as turning your eyes to God. Okay. If you're looking up in the sky, you're looking in the wrong place. When you turn your eyes to God, if you're closing them and going within, then we're on the right track. That's what New Thought is about. There is one creative power and presence, and we are all it, and we have access to that creative power, and we're using it all the time. And in other religions, there's some sort of an external God that might say no, that'll be judging us and evaluating us, that there might be some secret path or decoder ring that we need to figure out in order for us to be okay. And what all of New Thought has in common is we're okay now. We're perfect, whole, and complete right here and right now and always. And we don't need to be forgiven. We might want to forgive ourselves, but we don't need to be forgiven.
That's lovely. You have a great way of putting things into a nice little pithy, a comment that you can repeat to everybody. I think that's part of the problem is I've been going around trying to talk to my family and stuff that I'm not actually going to be sliding into hell because I'm a new thought. And, just what exactly does that mean? So these are some, I'm writing this down because I'm actually going to use this to talk with people who love me about what it is that I'm actually doing and what's what is different, because it's different, but it's the same because it's the same God. And so, to explain that. So thank you very much for that. Anybody have any comments or questions? Now, somebody's got their hand up. Christine, you have your hand up there?
Yeah, this has been my experience lately. A lot of people who I know who belong currently to different religious denominations, be it Catholic, Protestant, Baptist, whatever, have seen a change in me since I've been with New Thought Philly since the beginning of COVID. And they keep saying, they keep continuing to ask me questions.
Sure.
And so when they see me, they see a difference in me and my presence and things like that. And these are people who've known me for a long time. And they're like, can we talk about this? What's going on? This is you're so different and, at peace and things like that. And then, as Bill said, that's I try to keep it simple and use language so not to get into lingo bingo with people.
Exactly.
And I'm so it's well, okay, so we believe in God and there's one God. Yeah, we can agree on that.
Exactly.
And what I find a challenge is as soon as I start to say, if we look up, we're looking in the wrong place. That's where confusion kind of sets in.
Right.
That's the spot where it starts. Yep.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And so probably being on some of Bill's podcasts would probably help out with just more languaging and things like that. So yeah, thank you.
And two things there. Chris mentioned lingo bingo, because we use a lot of the same texts and courseware that other people use. And what I tell the students in every one of the classes is that we're playing all the time a game called lingo bingo. If you hear something that's lingo, like, oh, a practitioner to manifest a demonstration, you can just interrupt and say, lingo bingo, what does that mean?
I love it.
And then what we'll do is we'll go back and explain what that means. Now we teach the traditional language, the traditional New Thought language, and the alternative New Thought language, so that we're actually saying what we mean and meaning what we say. But also we don't want to get into the situation where our practitioners get together with the religious science practitioners and they don't know what they're talking about, because we need to make sure that we're bilingual.
Exactly.
The other thing I want to do, Chris, if it's okay, I'm going to quote the text thread that you started yesterday.
Sure.
Chris's dad has a support dog, Pavel, who is unhealthy now and in pain, and there's a possibility to have to be put down yesterday, and that was cause for lots of concern. So Chris sent around a prayer request to 8 or 10 people, and the response is, I will pray real hard for Dad's doggy friend, knowing the truth for Pavel in his highest and best, praying for healing for Pavel. Father, heal Pavel and shower your mercies on all who are attending to him at the vet's office. Hear our prayers, Father, to bring sweet Pavel back to Chris's dad. In Jesus' name we pray, amen. Knowing the truth for Pavel in highest and best. Can you see which one of those is different?
Yeah, exactly.
And so when we're attuned to it, when we can hear the traditional prayer in the same context as the affirmative, positive, practical prayers, the spiritual mind treatments that we're so familiar with, it becomes much more obvious than when we're talking amongst ourselves. What's the difference between a unity prayer and a religious science prayer?
Excellent. I think Reverend Michael, do you have a question?
I do.
No, Reverend,
More of a comment. More of a comment. I agree with the likenesses of New Thought and unifying all of them. And I know that we have a very specific way of praying as well. But as far as belief about other religions, I think we should be building bridges and not walls. And I think it's more important that God hears all prayers, and miracles happen in every religion. So that separation concerns me, just to be honest with you. It just concerns me. I don't want to alienate anybody. And as far as going, looking up, if going within and then looking up is miraculous.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
So I don't want to tell other religions, but I just want to rather we build bridges and not alienate ourselves. The terminology concerns me, how we expressed it, that they're doing it wrong and we're doing it right.
I do want to interject just quickly. I'm not clear that I heard, and I'm not arguing, I'm just saying, I'm not clear that I heard anyone saying that it was wrong. What I'm trying to do is explain when I'm talking, that language helps me explain how I pray differently than my sister prays. Not that either one of them are wrong. And I'm hoping that what you're saying, that's not coming across when I'm explaining to someone who prays the way that my sister does and the way that I do, that I'm saying that they're right or wrong. So I appreciate you bringing that up. I'll have to reflect on that. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, you guys definitely, there's like 38 episodes of the podcast. It's this conversation in various forms. So
yeah, and then Reverend, as I have learned from New Thought, I was raised Catholic, and we've talked about the prayer. Our Father is a practical prayer.
Okay.
Yeah.
Lisa, did that cover your question?
No, I want to bring in something else that I think is really, really important. I come from Montgomery County, which is right outside of DC, and it's very, very diverse. So when I talk to people, they're not Christians. They are atheists or people who are non-affiliated. There's a lot of scientists here who really want, and technology people who really want a place to practice spirituality. And the word that I use for these people is non-dualism, which talks to the eyes up or eyes within. And I'm wondering if there is a place in New Thought to embrace this growing segment of our country, and I think in the world, of non-affiliated. They don't want to have, they deeply distrust religion. They are tired of secularism, which hasn't done it, and they want to find a place to go. So I bring in other people, such as Don Miguel Ruiz. I bring in Buddhist thinking as well, because they fit in so well with New Thought. And my journey here was through Course in Miracles, which has no church. So I just want to put out that the conversation can be brought broader to not only talk about people who have maybe a more traditional way of praying, but maybe people who are asking where to go. And okay, I'm going to stop there.
Yeah, thank you. That's a great point, Lisa. And the answer, as far as I'm concerned, this is just my opinion, is whatever works. I love the idea of non-dualism because that's huge. On the other hand, that's talking about what it's not. So if you were to talk about what it is, non-dualism is a unity teaching or teaching of oneness, which is what we're about. And unfortunately, sometimes when you talk about a teaching of oneness, people who would understand non-dualism don't get it. So it's about using the language that's going to land in the room so that we get the message across. The other term is spiritual but not religious. There are lots of people who call themselves SBNR, and either they've given up on a religion, or they're looking for one for the first time. You go to yoga studios. There are people who are doing what is essentially a spiritual practice, but it's got no religion to it whatsoever. And I say namaste, and then focus on your breathing.
Excellent.
Well, I just want to say to that, I think this goes beyond, and I think that New Thought does speak to these people. I think going to the yoga studios hasn't produced quite what people were thinking it would. And so I just want to put out there that there's a place in New Thought for people who are looking, who already know to go within. They're not looking for something outside of themselves to make them happy or to cure them or whatever. But they feel this loneliness and this disconnection. And one of the great things that New Thought offers the world is the answer to that loneliness.
Yeah, I
I'll stop
agree.
there.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, that actually tees up something else that that definitely wanted to mention. So when this pandemic started, you guys are all familiar with the pandemic, right? Yeah. In March of 2020, when everything else was shutting down, I started doing a twice a day online meditation. It's 15 minutes. It plays to my strengths. The group gets together on Zoom. We chat for a few minutes, decide what it is that we want to bring into the meditation or the prayer. And then I lead a guided meditation on that topic. And we're done in 15 minutes. I mean, literally between 10 and 15 minutes, and we're out. 8 o'clock in the morning and 6 o'clock in the evening. And we have a meetup called Philly's Spiritual Adventures, which is now up to like 850 people. And there are folks all over the country and all over the world who have found us through whatever meetups algorithm is, and they'll just drop by. And they don't necessarily have any background in New Thought or what it is that we're doing. They understand that the prayer and the meditation are different perhaps than what they're used to, but it's very clearly a spiritual practice. And the response has been tremendous. And I go on to the meditation, and there's going to be a couple of folks from Philadelphia, including people who found us for the first time through the meetup, and people in Arizona and New Orleans, and as often as not, somebody who's in Portugal or in England. And through all of this, we've attracted a practitioner who's in practitioner studies with us, who's in Milwaukee. And so it's a matter of letting the teaching and the practice happen. And by the way, everybody is invited, yourselves, anytime you want to drop by the meditation, 8 a.m. and 6 p.m. Monday through Friday, and there's a couple of them on the weekends as well. And all that info is on the website, newthoughtphilly.org. You can find the meetup and all the rest of the stuff that I'm up to from there. But by all means, you can jump in. We got people who attend other churches regularly who drop by for our meditations, because it's an and. It's an and.
Thank you, Bill. So again, when we were talking about it, you talked about, which is, why I introduced you as our technology guru, new ways that we're using technology. And certainly you just talked about using the meditation on Zoom. And most of us who are tech tards, which is me, it's a challenge. So let's talk about that, shall we? Some new ways that we.
Absolutely. And I have this blessing of having spent multiple decades working in the technology sector, starting in broadcasting and making my way through the printing industry and publishing and digital printing and internet and software and stuff like that. So I am very comfortable with technology. I'm especially comfortable with technology that I'm not familiar with. So I have a real facility for saying, well, this ought to work. Let's figure out how we can make it work, and diving into that. And what that means is that I've been able to deploy a lot of technology that's available in ways that are going to be really supportive to my spiritual community. And now I'm offering that up to other spiritual communities as well. So the big challenge that we had 2 years ago is, how do you do Sundays on Zoom and make the music work? And we figured out how to do that, and been teaching people how to do that all along. And now the next big one is, okay, some of us want to go back into the room together, but others either don't want to, or are comfortable on their couch, or live 2,000 miles away and want to continue taking part the way they have been during this very convenient pandemic. So how do we go hybrid? How do we keep the intimacy that we have with the group on Zoom and go back into the room together and not alienate half of the group? And we figure out how to do that. So I'm teaching people how to do that. Is it a good idea to take advantage of some of the other technology? Do you need to be backing up your computer? Should you be using the cloud? is there perhaps a better way of doing things than using carbon paper? I mean, there's a lot of possibilities. And so what I've done is I've offered myself up either on a casual basis. Basically, I do practitioner work and spiritual counseling. And so what we do for a technology session, it's the same thing. You book an hour on my calendar, we pray in, and then instead of talking about the spiritual development, we talk about what's going on with your tech. And either there are some suggestions that come out of that, or we'll figure out a project or a program that we need to do. And I'm available to help make it happen. I've also got a program where I offer myself up as an on-call chief technology officer, which is one of the things that I'm doing with ANTN at this point. So we have 3 big projects that are running, and we're going to take the organization into the cloud, switch to an association management platform, and do everything else on using Google for the cloud. And it's in the process of being transformative. It's not done yet. So poor John Carn just says everything keeps changing, but soon it will stop. And like I say, that stuff is all it's available to anybody who's interested as well. My website is bethelight.com, b-the-light.com, and I'll put it into the chat. So if you're interested, go ahead and get a hold of me there.
Thank you, Bill. So what would be, what's the recommendation in terms of the hybrid issue? Whether, you know, again, for when we first started, when this first came out, and we had to shut down church and start doing things online, we just put an iPhone, you know, on a on a stand and just started shooting. And so we haven't really gone much further than that. So, you know, is there something you could share with us right now that would be helpful in terms of what's the minimal amount of things that we would necessarily have to do for us to actually have our service online? Because I don't know, I mean, maybe, and this is the question too for you and for everyone, I don't know that we could actually continue moving forward without having this technology and having a service online. I don't know how that's possible, but yeah, I'll let you speak to that.
Yeah, great question. And for my days doing workflow consulting and technology transformation for companies, what I like to say is you got to work backwards. And what you want to do is start with what you want this to wind up being. So what's the experience that you want your in-person people to have, and what's the experience that you want the remote people to have? And once you identify that, then that kind of dictates what the process that you're going to have to go through and how complicated it is. Because if what you want to be able to do is get everybody together in the room and have the people who are at home watch on a live stream on YouTube or Facebook, that's relatively easy. The only thing you got to do is figure out how to get that phone positioned in such a way that it's going to sound right. Because, by the way, most of what we do on Sunday mornings works equally well as a radio show, because, I mean, it's going to be a bunch of heads that are going to kind of stay there. You know, even when I'm doing the Sunday talk, if I move around and wave my hands, that's not like an action movie. So we really want it to sound good, and having it sound good is the most important part. So, but once we figure out how we're going to make it sound good, then we're done.
Okay.
For New Thought Philadelphia, we've gotten really connected on Zoom. So we have a lot of interaction amongst the groups. There's, you know, so the person who's doing the talk is different than the person who's doing the announcements and the greeting and the offering and some of our ritual stuff, and the meditation is being led by a practitioner, and they're all in different places. And as we go back in person, we don't want to say when we're live, then everybody has to be in the room. We want to be able to have that same sharing go on. You know, one of the things we do is a prayer work story. You know, we want to, if you've been doing some prayer, raise your hand and tell the group about it. And we don't want to limit it to the folks who are in the room or have somebody pre-record it. So we need to stay on Zoom. And staying on Zoom and having the people who are remote show up in the room and the people who are in the room show up on the remote is a little bit more complicated. But once you know that's the way that you want it to look, then it's a matter of saying, okay, what's going to be the easiest, most streamlined, most effective way of doing what it is that we want to do.
Good. Yes, that's clear as mud.
Yeah. Two-step process. Figure out what to do it.
Great. Thank you. I know there's some questions. Carolyn, I can see you have your hand up.
Yes, one of the challenges that we have encountered when we went back to having an in-person, well, it's still a hybrid meeting, but when we record with more people in the room, folks that are online say they have a hard time with the audio, that the sound is really, really bad. And we've done all the expensive things, you know, new speakers, better mics, and they still have a bad audio experience. But on the Sundays when we are 100%, everybody is virtual in their own square, the sound and everything goes extremely well. No complaints.
Yeah.
Any thoughts?
Yeah, we've been talking about talking, and we should talk, because what'll happen is there's one little thing that needs to be changed. I don't know what it is yet. But once you change that one little thing, then it'll sound as good on your in-person, in your hybrid Sundays, as it does on the other Sundays. I have some ideas, but let's talk offline, because otherwise everybody else is going to watch us go through the triage on your situation.
Thank you.
Great. I'm just going to open just for a second and just ask, is anybody, I don't want to keep going forward, there's people sitting here looking like what's going on. Is there anybody that has any questions for Bill at this point? Yes, Novella.
So we have been using Facebook Live, live streaming. We have some experience using Zoom. We've talked about using like a YouTube channel. So I'm kind of wondering what your take is on using those various platforms, one better than the other, or how they work together.
Brzezinski is going, oh, I can answer that. And the answer is, whatever's going to work best for your organization. Because it's very important for New Thought Philadelphia to be interactive, we use Zoom. We also, because Zoom will allow us to record and to simultaneously live stream to Facebook or YouTube or something else, but not an and. We've chosen to do YouTube. And there are a few reasons for that. The first is that at the very beginning of the pandemic, the people at Facebook woefully underestimated the capacity that they would need to have on Sunday mornings. So we could never get our live stream to work at 10:30 on Eastern time. The other thing we really like about being on YouTube is that it keeps a library, an archive of everything we've done. And YouTube keeps it very nicely organized, whereas Facebook is more like a haystack that you throw your needles into. For other presentations, I mean, for the New Thought Media Network stuff, it's using StreamYard, which is a video presentation software where you can be interactive with 8 or 10 people, and everybody else can watch, and they can put it on the multiple channels simultaneously. Without getting deep into the weeds, Robert, you have 30 seconds worth of commentary to add.
Yes, because don't let yourself be beholden to anybody else. Work with New Thought organizations and hold everything else lightly. Over the last 2 years, I think the quote that has been the most relevant for me is that the one self-existent cause is forever taking on form and experience in order to abandon that form and experience in order to take on new form and experience.
Right.
What we have today will not be what you're using in 5 years.
Right.
Do not close your eyes to what's coming next.
Okay.
The metaverse is upon us. And if things like Wonder ME and spatial video and the words like metaverse scare you, cool, come hang out with New Thought Media Network. We'll make it easy. We'll make it simpler. But we have to constantly be looking 5 years out. So I love what Bill says. Do what works for you today. Do what feels in alignment with your community today, but also be open to the fact that we are all global virtual ministries at this point. And how you're going to do your global virtual ministry will be as different as the way everybody did physical brick and mortar ministry in the 70s and the 80s and the 90s and the 2000s. We're always going to be, and the change is so much more rapid with online technologies.
Yeah, thank you, Robert. And oh, by the way, if you've never heard of the metaverse before, now you've heard of it. So next time it'll be less unfamiliar.
Yeah, thank you so much, Robert. Okay, so that I don't see anybody else with a hand up. So I'm just going to ask you. You talked about when we just had our discussion, Bill. You talked about things that are coming, new ways of using technology to run our groups. You also talked about new ways to use technology to grow our groups. Speak to that a little bit.
Yeah, the technology is upon us, and we can use it and leverage it and cross connect ourselves with it. So if you're doing a Sunday celebration and you're recording the videos of it, then put them online someplace, make them be searchable, and share them on Facebook so that people know that you're there. One of the things that we did years ago at New Thought Philly was create this Philly Spiritual Adventures meetup. And we intentionally gave it a name that wasn't about New Thought because we wanted people who are into a spiritual adventure to come and find us. And it was it took a while for it to grow and for it to build up. But what's happened is now that we've got 850 people and we've got folks who are clicking in on a daily basis saying, I'm going to the meditation, I'm going to the meditation, suddenly the meetup algorithm thinks that we're a happening thing and it's putting us in front of more people. So we're meeting more people and we're getting in touch with new people. So get involved in events, watch what's going on New Thought Media Network and the other New Thought spaces and places that are on Facebook or LinkedIn, and get involved a little bit because your involvement creates some traction. Get yourself a presence. Everybody has a gift. Everybody has multiple gifts. So if you know what your gifts are, then deploy them. And if you don't know how you might be able to use your gifts in an online or technological sense, then take that into meditation. Take that into meditation or take that into some spiritual counseling and some deep work. How can I best express these God-given gifts of mine in a way that's going to resonate with the people who are seeking them? And once you get into that, then it's a matter of executing on God's plan and then stepping back and letting the blossoms grow. It seems so simple.
It is. It's not easy. It is simple. Thank you. Thank you, Bill. Christine, I see you have another question.
Yeah, well, it has exactly what you're talking about here in terms of using technology now and looking out and what's going on. But again, my experience has been a lot of people sharing, including me. I used to be like on Facebook every day. And then I found it to become stressful and toxic. And so I pulled away from Facebook. And I know a lot of other people that I either shared with or they have shared with me, initiated that, is I am not on Facebook any longer. I prefer Instagram because Facebook has made changes that people do not like advertisements and even pornography advertisements you can like see across it. So I have come across a lot of people who have said, I'm not liking the changes of Facebook made. So just I'm putting that out there.
Thank you, Christine.
And yeah, that's a great point, is find what works for you today. That's exactly what Robert was saying, and expect that it's going to change again. Sorry, that's the nature of technology. Oh, if you really like the way Zoom works today, don't get attached. They're going to change it. They're going to change it.
Change is inevitable. That's what we always say. Yeah. So you are our VP and our tech guru. So tell us what's going on tech-wise for ANTN and how that might affect the members.
Things are going to become much more streamlined. We did a little bit already, like registration for the Thought Leader Thursday is now through an event registration site. So you can raise your hand and say, I want to be at Thought Leader Thursday, and we'll send you automatic reminder emails. And there's a thing that you can click to put it on your calendar. And 10 minutes before the session started, we emailed you the Zoom link, and that's all automatic. And those sorts of things are going to be continuing. The website is going through a full revamp. We're moving to a platform called Wild Apricot, which will bring the membership system and the e-newsletters and the website and event registration and all under the same umbrella, which will make it easier for poor John Karn to only have to put things in once, which will be nice, but it will also give our members the ability to update their own information. And oh, by the way, once you're a member of ANTN, do you think you really need to fill out the form with your name and your address again, just because you're going to come to the conference or the retreat? No, that stuff is all going to be cross-connected. So what will happen is, as that comes online, things will become much more streamlined. And you may or may not notice that it's easier. When the board is sharing documents back and forth, we have this tendency to create the meeting minutes and send a copy around to the 9 people who are on the board, and then get 9 sets of revisions back if everybody's doing their job and sending back revisions. And then putting all of those together and coming up with a best guess at what the final version should be, and sending those around. So now there are 18 versions of the same minutes, and then maybe there's going to be comments back from that. And then every time you send it around, you get, multiply it by 9, and we're moving that to the cloud. So what we're going to do is we're going to share a link to a document, and everybody's going to be able to make comments on the same document. So you don't have to make a change and then unmake the change and then make it back again, and then figure out how many people thought that the change should be in there, etc., because it's all in line. So that'll make the organization more streamlined. And the way that shows up in the world is that we're then able to spend our time doing things that are going to be more helpful and forward and outward looking than keeping track of the, who said what on the meeting minutes.
Yeah. Great. Thank you.
Yeah.
We know that, I'm sorry, did someone say something? I don't want to step in. Okay. All right.
I'll just take a second there and talk about the Unity Worldwide Ministries Technology Conference, which is March 29th through the 31st. And I'm going to be presenting in a couple of sessions there on basically how to move forward with your technology. And there's a keynote session and there's a workshop session, and they're going to be different sides of the same coin. And a lot of it's asking those questions. All right, you go to the doctor and they say, where does it hurt? And when you're going to be upgrading your technology, you want to figure out what's the problem. Is there something that hurts? Is there something that's using up a lot of your time? Is there something that's a distraction? Is there something that's got you clicking 19 times when you want to do one thing? And we look at that and say, can we automate it? Can we simplify it? Can we streamline it? Can we straighten some things out there? And in my software days, I realized that we can automate anything. And sometimes it's not worth it, because sometimes it will take 10 times as long to automate something as it'll take to do it for the next 5 years. So we don't want to automate those things. But if there's something where we can save 40 hours a month for an employee, it's like, that's an extra week. Sure, we want to definitely do that. It's worth the project. So we'll evaluate what's going on, what do we want to have going on, and then understand where we're going to be heading with that. And like I say, that's through Unity Worldwide Ministries. It's on their website. Registration is open. It's a virtual conference on the Whova platform, which I've not used before, but I understand is wonderful. And like I say, registration is open.
What's the dates again, Bill?
March 29th through the 31st, and it's all virtual, so you can mix and match and choose the sessions that you want.
Okay.
Apparently at Unity Worldwide Ministries, the time zones are really important. They start at noon Eastern, which is a little too early for Hawaii. You really have to be committed in Hawaii. It's a 6 a.m. event, or 5, depending on whether it's daylight savings time or not. And so the sessions for the most part are between noon and about 5 or 6 Eastern time. So it's an afternoon thing for me.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate you being here. And a couple more things that I wanted to ask, and if everybody else has anything that they want to ask you, please speak up. But what's coming up that you think, because you just talked about the Unity Worldwide Tech Conference, and is that something for for us, the lay people, or what? So what's coming up that you think is something that we would, as practitioners and ministers and things, that would actually be helpful for us?
Oh, the next big thing is going to be the ANTN virtual retreat. So last April, we'd gotten really impatient because the 2020 conference, which was supposed to be October, Unity Village, got postponed, and we rescheduled to April. And then it seems we're coming up to April, and we're gonna have to push it back to October. So we did, but it had been a year and a half since we'd gotten together. So we said, let's do a one-day retreat online. And so we did. And it was fabulous. We got 150 people dropping by in all sorts of keynote sessions and breakout sessions. And it was just plain fun. And it really captured the passion that everybody had for New Thought, because it was free. So no admission charge, everything was done by love offering. And we got some of the most fabulous presenters in the world to also perform for us that day by love offering. And I mean, that's people like Daniel Nahmod and James Mellon and Mark Anthony Lord, and the list keeps on going. It was a fabulous event. Everybody had a great time. And the people who were involved actually wound up being compensated, because that love offering, the love is a wonderful multiplier. So the internet wires had hardly cooled down. We decided we want to do that again. So, so we're doing the second annual ANTN virtual retreat, and that is coming up on the 22nd of April. And I'm actually going to look at my screen to make sure that I don't misstate anything about what we're doing for that. Yeah, because I'm pretty good at misstating the things that I'm doing. And I try to avoid that. So the theme this year is a world rooted in love. It's the one-day retreat. And there are some amazing people who are going to be taking part in this one already. And it's not that we haven't finished putting it all together. So I'll give you the partial list. Michael Gott, Celeste Frazier, Amy Steinberg, Daniel Nahmod, Jeff Unseely, Sally Robbins, Edward Miller, Nemo, Marcy Baruch, Pjae Stanley, Renee Laboa, and. So, and what we're doing is there are also breakout sessions. There's going to be a New Thought Pray-a-thon. We did that for the first time last year, which is awesome. Go into a breakout room together and come up with an intention or a bunch of intentions. And then at the end, everybody prays out loud together. It is a Zoom cacophony like you can't imagine, but so uplifting and positive. It's just awesome. We're going to do a social scramble that we're just going to basically break people into pairs or threes. And you go off into a breakout room, and the assignment is figure out why you're in this room together. And it's New Thought and one mind. And it turns out, oh my goodness, we went to the same grade school. Just astounding stories that show up in that. We're going to be having breakouts for affinity groups. So if you're a minister, or you're between pulpits, or you're a practitioner at LUT, or a board member, you get together with your peeps in an affinity group and kind of compare notes, and again find out why you're in the room together with them. And meditations and spiritual practices and physical practices, and just the full schedule of stuff going on. It's 11 a.m. to 9:30 p.m. Eastern time, and it wraps up with an all-star concert, which is Michael Gott and Marcy Baruch and Daniel Nahmod and Nemo. So it is going to be a spectacular event. Definitely make room for that. And the registration is open now. It's on the ANTN website, which is at antn.org. Abigail asked about the full schedule. Yeah. Huh. I'm sorry, this is an internet event. I can we can give you most of the schedule, but we can't give you the full schedule, because it's still coming together. We do know when the keynotes are going to happen. There's an outline of where the keynotes and the breakouts are going to be, and then we'll be filling those in on the website as either as the time approaches or as I have time to put stuff on the website. Potato, potato.
I have a question before we go. I'm sorry.
I just was wondering who is speaking.
Lisa?
That's Lisa.
Thank you, Lisa. Yes, I'm sorry. I can see.
For anybody to answer, but to Bill, now that we are really all virtual, has there been, you don't really have a filter of who comes in to your prayer groups or whatever, and have any of you had a situation where there was a person who was disruptive or something like that? And do you have any words of wisdom for that?
Yeah, we call them hooligans. So, and probably 3 or 4 times over the course of 2 years, doing meditations twice a day. We've had hooligans drop by, and only once was it a real problem. And apparently, because the way that we had originally done it is we set up our Zoom meeting. So we always use the same Zoom meeting ID. It's our personal meeting ID. And we set it up with no access controls. There was no waiting room. So basically anybody showed up in our sanctuary and they could stay as long as they wanted. And if 2 people showed up there and it wasn't meditation time, they could talk there as long as they wanted. The only thing that we had going on is that we were recording everything. So it's kind of like having a church sanctuary with a surveillance camera. And because anybody could get into this meeting at any time, at some point, there are people apparently who spend their time Zoom bombing because they think that that's a thing to do. And one morning during the meditation, we got Zoom bombed. And there's a bunch of people who dropped by, and it was the first time that it happened. And I kind of knew what to do, but we managed to kick them out and then turn on the waiting room. And what we did after that was we realized we could lock the meeting down completely, so people had to be registered, which makes it difficult, especially for spiritual types, to figure out how the technology works and be able to get back into the meeting.
Hey,
we didn't want to run away and hide, but we also didn't want to, put ourselves in a position where we're going to be, having to explain to people why these nefarious hooligans are coming by. So what we did is we switched the room so that it now has a waiting room. And when somebody drops by, they get admitted into the waiting room. And once or twice since then, we've had people drop by and be disruptive, but we also know how to do it. Everybody who's involved in the organization who gets, especially on Sunday mornings, everybody on our production team gets co-host capabilities. So we can all turn off all the microphones and all the videos and also be able to turn our own microphones back on. So we put a protocol in place so that we're safe from it. My favorite experience with all of this is the morning that the Zoom bombing first happened. I also got an email from Zoom because apparently they watch social media and they saw that our link had been shared by the hooligans.com or whatever it was. And the meditation went from 8 to 8:15, and we managed to throw out the 3 or 4 of them who got into that. And I was then resetting the meeting to use the waiting room. And it told me that the meeting was in progress. I was like, well, what's going on with that? So I went into the meeting. It was like 25 after 8. We had been finished at 8:15. And there were 25 people in the room, all being obnoxious to each other. They were wasting their own time because there was nobody from our group who was in the meeting. We'd all left 10 minutes earlier. It is the most absurd video I've ever seen. I can't bring myself to delete it.
There's a couple of people that have questions for you, Bill, or questions in the room. Mary Beth, do you still have a question?
I just put it in the chat. I just wanted to give a little bit of information about Virtual Retreat 22. And also the fact it's on Earth Day. So that's going to be pretty provocative too.
All right.
There's
Thank you.
info in the chat.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you,
Caroline,
Beth.
did you still have a question? No, you're good. Okay. Thank you. Dr. Steve, did you have a question or a comment?
Before we leave, I wanted to wish everybody a happy New Thought Day, which comes up on March 6th this year. And that's the celebration that we created in 2013, where all the leaders of all the different New Thought groups approved a video that Lonnie Whittington put together. And they celebrate the history of New Thought and what everyone believes, and some of the differences, but pretty much the similarities. So I wanted to wish you all a happy New Thought Day. If you don't have the PowerPoint, let us know, and I put it in the chat. You can get it through All Faith Center. Thanks,
And
BJ.
that's not this Sunday, that's the following Sunday.
Right,
So there's still time.
right.
Thank you. Thank you, Reverend Steve. I think I just put something there for you, John, in the chat, so if you can respond to that. Bill, is there some, what would you like to tell us? We have a few more minutes left. Is there anything that you want to share with us that you haven't shared already? What's some
There's
last words for it?
there's so much going on. I could talk about God calls, which are my 30-second phone calls where I just did a quick shot of inspiration. But mostly I'm interested in the people who are here, because it seems like it really resonated when I said, find what your gift is, find what your gifts are, and find the channel that you can use to share those, because that's what this is all about. There is that bright light that is New Thought, that infinite possibility that's continuing to blossom and unfold. And it's right here. It's on this Zoom. It's the people who are watching this recording. So let the light shine, let the love flow, let yourself be that beacon, and be okay with people noticing and recognizing and following and adoring. And that's the gig.
It is. Thank you. Thank you so much. Okay, so we're just going to go ahead and wrap it up here. We've got like 5 minutes left. I think you said, John, 4 or 5 minutes left. Any other questions before I make some final comments? Anybody else have a comment to make? Okay. So what's coming up? I do want to share with what's our next Thought Leader Thursday. We are introducing to you our new ED, Executive Director, which is Miss Michelle Whittington. And if you want to just share a couple of things that you're going to be talking with us, I know I don't need to put you on the spot. I could do it if that's not. I figured you could. Yeah, I figured.
Yeah, always. So first of all, I'm so honored, thrilled, delighted, excited, and however many other adjectives I can use to be ANTN's first executive director. I just could not be more excited for the use of my skills to be applied to the organization that I absolutely adore and have adored for 25 years. So just so happy. So at our next New Thought or Thought Leader Thursday, I'm going to talk to you about some things, the initiatives that we're getting off the ground to support our membership in profound ways. That is one of my big goals for my work as an executive director. Another goal of Bill mentioned it, of bringing New Thought groups together. I'm making inroads, meeting the executive directors and the leaders of the various New Thought organizations, the ones I don't already know, or I'm introducing myself in this new role. And then the other thing we'll do next time we get together in March is I'm going to offer you, because ANTN is expanding. ANTN is going out in bigger and bigger ways, and I'm going to just offer you a brief little challenge for you to do that in your own life or your own ministry or wherever there is a desire, an inner yearning to expand, and a really beautiful way to have that happen. It's a consciousness way, but it's really quite profound and effective. So join us to find out about ANTN's expansion and a tool for your own.
All right. Thank you all so much. So you heard it right here. We're going to, and she's calling it To Boldly Go. That is the title of her talk next time, To Boldly Go. That is going to be coming up the final Thursday in March. And so be there. Feel free to invite others to come and to have a listen to what's going on with this beloved organization that we have. We love ANTN and was just doing so many things, and I can't imagine being where I am right now. In fact, I just don't know that I would be here without ANTN, without all of you, and certainly without our beloved leader Jerry and his love for this organization. So, and Emerson and all the wonderful things that we have going on. Reverend Bill, thank you so much for your insights and all the wonderful things that you do and have done for ANTN and continue to do, being our VP and tech guru. I love talking to you. You're just so straightforward and very helpful and loving. So if you guys haven't had an opportunity to get on his website to talk with him, please do so. Thank you all so much for being here today. It's great to see you. John, is there anything else that I need to do? Are you going out with prayer? Do we pray real quick, or because we only got like 30 seconds here?
You can do that if you like. This session's been recorded and it will be up on our YouTube page by the end of the day.
Excellent. Excellent. So I think that is it. If no one else has any other comments or thoughts that you'd like to share, thank you all for being here. Thank you again, Reverend Bill, and we will see you in March. Thank you.
In honor of Bill, I brought some Philadelphia food for lunch.
I was wondering what that was.
Beefsteaks, pretzels, tasty cakes. There you go. Oh,
Awesome.
and water ice.
He brought lunch for us.
Lovely. Thank you.
Thank you,
Great.
Steve.
The nice thing is there's no calories.
Oh,
Of
yeah.
course, no, I can see that.
And we're still hungry, you know, at the end, we're still hungry for some reason.
That's beautiful.
All right, well, thank you. Good job. Thank you both.
Thank you.
Bye, everyone. Thank you.
Bye-bye, everybody.
Bye.
Great day.
Bye. Thank
Love you
you.
guys.
Bye.
Robert, I think I'm
you.
talking to you
Hey, good-
tomorrow.
Great job. Thank you.
Bye. Thank you.
Love you.